I'm Emily Guy Birkin, and you're listening to Deep Thoughts About Stupid Shit, because pop culture is still culture. And shouldn't you know what's in your head? On today's episode, I will be sharing my deep thoughts about the 1992 Saturday Night Live movie, Wayne's World, with my sister, Tracy Guy Decker, and with you. Let's dive in.
Have you ever had something you love dismissed because it's just pop culture? What others might deem stupid shit, you know matters. You know it's worth talking and thinking about. And so do we. So come overthink with us as we delve into our deep thoughts about stupid shit.
All right, Trace, I'm pretty sure I know that you've seen this. It's just such a cultural icon. But tell me what you know, remember when you saw Wayne's World.
I must have seen it in 92. I was 16. So I know I saw it when it was out. And yeah, I remember, I just remember it fondly. And then there are like little moments that have become like touchstones. Like anytime I've gotten a little bit of money that like I haven't expected, like the first paycheck from a job or like the first time I sold a painting or whatever, I got $5,000. I got $5,000. I'm trying to think like Bohemian Rhapsody. Like, I don't think I would know that song if it weren't for Wayne's World. Even some of the stupid little things that like a sphincter says, what? just all of those like honestly pretty dumb moments that were hilarious to 16-year-old Tracy. I just thought they were so fun. Even there's that one scene where he's with his girlfriend and he's like closing one eye and then the other and going camera one, camera two, camera one, camera two. Like there are these moments, like I have zero sense of what the actual plot was. I have no memory of a plot.
It's not really a plot. So
but in my mind, it's just like a string of like just silly, funny things that I remember with fondness. And that's pretty much all I got. Although I was just at a friend's house and I was said that we were to record about this. And my friend said, maybe it was in the second one. I think it must've been in the second one where there was like a girl version of Garth who had like a Unix coding book. And my friend was like, I was like, oh, it's for me. he's a coder. So it's this very disjointed, like highlights of things that made me laugh is what I remember about Wayne's World. So I have to ask you, why are we looking at it? Like what's at stake here with Wayne's World for you?
So I saw it in the theater. I can remember very vividly. I went to see it with my grade school best friend, Jen. I remember her mom dropped us off. We got ice cream first, and then we went to see the film. So we were 13, or I was 13. She probably was a little younger than me. And I felt very grown up because I was going to see a movie with my friend and not with a parent. And so this is a film that I thought of as being like, I'm one of the cool kids now.
It's so funny.
And then there were like references that I didn't necessarily get. And so there is a scene where Wayne is driving fast and he's pulled over by the actor, Robert Patrick, who played the Terminator in Terminator 2.
In the cop from the Terminator movie.
Yeah. And he shows him a picture of Edward Furlong and says, have you seen this boy? And I remember Jen and I both looked at each other going like, what? Do you understand that? I don't understand that. Neither of us had seen the film. We had no idea. It was no clue. So a lot of my kind of catchphrases, so I tend to think in movie quotes. For instance, when I was teaching, it would always happen. I would set something up and I would say to the kids like, okay, we're going to do this, 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 and this. And never fail, there was always a kid who would be like, what are we doing? And in my head, this is not from Wayne's World, this is from The Big Lebowski, I would be like, you're like a child who wanders into the middle of a movie. So that's kind of, and so I have similar sorts of things where my brain will immediately go to like, I got $5,000, or I'll do Exsqueeze me baking powder. And like anytime I see a package of condoms, it's like ribbed for her pleasure. Ew. So this is part of the, like the mental furniture of my mind, you know, like Mike Myers he's got a fairly,
He moved in.
Yeah.
He lives in your mind rent free.
Rent free. He's got a fairly significant
Wayne's World, party time. Excellent. All right. So Mike Myers is living in your head. That's why we're talking about it today.
Yes. And similar to what you were talking about with revisiting Monty Python and the Holy Grail, this was also, I kind of wanted something that wasn't going to feel like I was ruining my own childhood.
So we're taking a little bit of a break from childhood.
A little bit. Although there's still some deep stuff I need to talk about.
Okay.
But part of the reason why, and I don't know if I remembered this when I decided to do it for the show, but part of the reason why it was beloved is because it is good-hearted in a lot of ways. There's not a mean bone in its body. In this film, like, it's very sunny in a way that is lovely to kind of revisit. That, you know, this is humor that for the most part does not make anyone the butt of the joke. There are some things that I think would be done differently if the movie were made today. But for the most part, it's a very gentle movie in terms of how it finds its humor. And it really did kind of give me a sense of like how to be funny interpersonally. Also how to like show like satire, like ridiculousness. Like there's the scene in the middle where they're like, we'd never sell out. And then like Pepsi. Voice of
then they call that product placement.
Yeah.
After they say that.
Mm-hmm. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. I also, part of what got me thinking about it is I've mentioned before on the show, my family does a family movie night. We try to do it weekly. We don't often actually make it every week, but we take turns picking the film. And so I had been trying to think of films that I wanted to share with the kids, and this was one. And so that was another reason why I'd been thinking about it. And actually, we had a family movie night 2 nights ago and watched it together. So that was pretty fun. And it was funny because my youngest was like, I don't want to watch a movie. And then at the end, he's like, I was wrong. I enjoyed that, but I don't think it was appropriate for kids my age.
I love it when my daughter tells me that. It makes me laugh. I don't think that was appropriate for me. Like when my kid uses the word appropriate at me, it makes me laugh. Yeah. Anyway. Okay. Well, I'd love to hear, like, I have zero sense of any kind of plot. Mm-hmm. So remind me of that. And also, like, lay it on me, lay the analysis on me. Like, where are we going with this?
Okay. So the plot, such as it is, because this was a SNL sketch, this was only the second time that they made a movie. The first one was the Blues Brothers, which had been like 10 years before.
Yeah, that was a while. Yeah.
And
is it only 10 years?
Yeah, because it was early 80s.
82 to 92?
Something like that, yeah.
Wow, okay.
And it is the most successful Saturday Night Live movie ever made. So the sketch was Mike Myers had created the Wayne Campbell character long before he even came to SNL. And he based him on people he kind of grew up with and knew who were like really into like hard rock and that sort of thing. And then with Dana Carvey creating the character of Garth Algar, and they had this idea of doing a cable access show out of his basement. So, and that's one of the things that's really interesting about the film is that like it came in with the audience already knowing Wayne's World from Saturday Night Live.
Right.
So the story is Wayne and Garth are an indeterminate age. It is not clear how old they are supposed to be because my kids asked and we're like, unclear. They are post-high school, pre-middle age. They still live at home with their parents. They live across the street from each other. They are lifelong best friends. They have this cable access show. They have 3 or 4 other guys who work on it with them. They do the cable access show out of their basement, or out of Wayne's parents' basement. There's a new character played by Rob Lowe. He plays Benjamin Kane, who is this very slick Chicago area TV producer. It's set in Aurora, Illinois, which is outside of Chicago. And one of Benjamin's like girlfriends, like it's clear that this is a casual thing, is watching TV in bed with him at night. And she stops and watches Wayne's World for a little bit. And he's like, people like this? She's like, oh, it's hilarious. Everybody loves it. So he asks his assistant, Russell, to tape it. And he brings the show to a man named Noah Vanderhoff, who has several arcades in the Chicagoland area called Noah's Arcade. And he clearly is just in it as a way to make money. He's not like, passionate about games or anything. So the plot, such as it is Benjamin manipulates Noah Vanderhoff into agreeing to sponsor Wayne's World. And then he then goes to Wayne and Garth and manipulates them into signing a contract. And they each get $5,000 that basically sells Wayne's World to his production company. And then they lose control of it, but they're not aware of that. In the midst of this, Wayne goes to a club that he goes to regularly, a hard rock club called the Gasworks, where he sees a band called Crucial Taunt, with the lead singer is Cassandra Wong, who's played by Tia Carrere. And he sees her, and this is a consistent joke on Saturday Night Live. When Wayne or Garth would see a woman that they were smitten with, it would suddenly, the song Dreamweaver would like pipe in and there'd be like sparkles around the woman.
And a little bit of like wind, right? Like would blow her hair.
Yes. Yeah. Wayne, we have previously seen him looking at a Fender guitar that's very expensive that he wants. And he like turns to the camera and says, "It will be mine." "Oh yes, it will be." And when he sees Cassandra, he goes, "She will be mine." "Oh yes, she will be."
You remember, that's one of the things I've forgotten about it until
Yes.
you just said that. That's
Yes.
one of the mental
be
furniture. It will be mine. Oh yes, it will.
It's funny because my son actually said when that happened, he's like, "Isn't that kind of misogynistic, Mom?" I'm like, yes,
Yes, it is.
it is.
Parenting win.
You're right. So that is like the loose structure of the plot. There's a number of like silly things that happen. And the one other aspect of the quote unquote plot is that Benjamin gives Wayne and Garth tickets and backstage passes to an Alice Cooper show in Milwaukee to get them out of the way so that he can try to make a move on Cassandra. And he's also offering to create a music video for her and her band. It's clear that he's interested in her, although she has shown no interest whatsoever in him. And there's other, like, I don't know, call them subplots. Wayne has an ex-girlfriend who is kind of obsessed with him, Stacy, who he calls a psycho hose beast from hell, I think.
He's problematic in my
She is.
memory.
Yes. And one of the things that Wayne and Garth talk about is that Wayne doesn't have anything really to offer Cassandra compared to Benjamin, because he lives at home. He's got a well-paying job, or he doesn't have a well-paying job. Benjamin does, all of these different things. And so while they were at the Alice Cooper show, they happened to find out that a major record executive would be driving through Chicago on the same day that Cassandra's supposed to be filming her music video. And so that is part of the end of the plot. But none of that matters. I mean, it really doesn't matter. It's just a vehicle for silliness from beginning to end. So let me start with the women, because we often start with gender. Does not pass the Bechdel test.
Because Cassandra and
Stacy,
if they talk about it to each other, it's only about Wayne.
They don't talk to each other.
Oh, they don't even talk to each other.
They don't talk to each other. And there is Noah Vanderhoff's wife is in the and I believe, like, we don't get her first name, but she's Mrs. Vanderhoff, so she does have a name, but she doesn't talk to any women. She is played by Colleen Camp, who was Yvette in Clue.
Oh,
yeah. So that's how things were in 1992. It wouldn't have occurred to anyone that you needed to pass the Bechdel test. What's interesting, and what I did not know until I was doing research for this episode, is the director was Penelope Spheris. It was a woman director.
Was she a SNL alum?
She knew Lorne Michaels. Mm-hmm. They were friends. And she had actually never directed a feature-length film before. She had directed these, like, short documentaries about people in the hard rock scene.
Oh, so they picked her to give sort of a gritty veritas to it.
Kind of, yeah. And I mean, between that and then she knew Lorne, and Lorne was like, yeah, Penelope can do it. So
interesting.
Yeah. The biggest female part in the movie is Cassandra, played by Tia Carrere. I did not remember how likable she is, because, like, I just remembered her being hot.
Yeah, my recollection of her, and I haven't seen it in years and years, but my recollection is, like, actually kind of agreeing with the, like, what do I have to offer her? Like, why is she with this guy? Because he's so immature.
Aimless. Yeah.
I mean, it's not about even, like, the job or whatever, but, like, he's just, like, there's just not a lot there. And I remember her feeling like actually kind of a complex character with real ambition and talent and interests and things. That's my recollection.
And so that's what's interesting. So, like, part of what I found interesting watching it this time was realizing how well she and Wayne do fit together. That struck me, like, I had no memory of that. Now, part of it is, like, you first meet her and she is, first of all, she is not interested in anybody. Like, she's not interested in men. Now, there's a little bit of not like other girls to her because she is an accomplished musician, and she did her own singing. I did not realize this. That is her singing Ballroom Blitz.
That's cool.
And she, like, the way they describe it is she wails. She does. They're really good. Like, you see her break up a fight and, like, for first thing. So there's definitely, like, this woman is incredible.
A little bit of badassery going on.
Yeah. But she also has a very immature sense of humor. And, like, when we first meet her, she, like, is not charmed at all by either Wayne or Benjamin trying to hit on her when they first meet. And she, like, says, like, hey, I gotta go. The owner of this place is trying to screw me over. And, like, is vulgar in a way that feels like it matches Wayne's kind of immaturity.
Immature.
Yeah. And it's not like an ugliness but it just matches.
It's almost like a comportment toward whatever. Yeah.
And the reason why she ends up liking Wayne is because he learns Cantonese for her.
Oh, so he can speak to her in Cantonese. He learns some phrases in Cantonese. I vaguely remember that. And
it's a very funny scene because, well, he's like, it's a week between when he meets her for the first time and when he's like, I'd like to see you again, or I don't remember exactly what it is. And she's like, oh, I'm having a party at my loft next week. There's flyers over there. Come to that. It's $5 at the door. So, like, she's not interested in him. And so in that week, he listens to audio Cantonese stuff. And then they have this, he's like, he first tells her, you're pretty in Cantonese. And she's like, oh my God, that's amazing. And then they start having a conversation. He's like, oh, I don't know much. And then they have this very deep, intense conversation. And one of my favorite sight gag is he says something that is very short. It's like 2 syllables. And then the subtitles go on for like 30 seconds.
That is such an old joke, and yet it's still funny.
It's still funny.
How you can say like that old joke that like it takes like a whole paragraph to say like yes, but then you can say like the meaning of life with like 3 words.
Yeah. So
I feel like that's a Bugs Bunny joke.
it is. Yeah, I think it is. So that's like that. I really appreciated that. Like, I felt like, okay, I get why they're together. Because he is bringing a levity to her also, because she does take things very seriously. And so like that's being able to relax.
Yeah, and she works so very hard. She's very
Yes.
driven, and so having
Yes.
someone who can just make her laugh, that does make sense. It does.
Yeah. So honestly, I just was not expecting to find her character so well drawn and likable, because what I remember about her is her body and her face. And that's where I think this film is employing the male gaze.
Can you say more?
Because that was what I took away from Cassandra, was not this nuanced character who like was a good fit for Wayne in a lot of ways and was clearly very driven and all of that. And actually, as a character, the way she dresses makes sense. Like, she's like, I am willing to use the fact that I am a gorgeous woman to help promote this band. I don't think that, like, she's also dressing for herself. Like, you never see her. She likes to dress in a way that shows off her body, and she's proud of her body. So like, it's not like she wears sweats and then when she's on stage she does that. It's not exactly that clear cut, but there is this sense that like she's not unwilling to use that aspect of who she is to try to help her band make it.
How would you change it to make it not?
So some of it has to do with the way that they look at women in general, like the Dreamweaver joke.
Yeah.
That's the male gaze.
Right. Or even they did the swing thing, right? Where they like lift their pelvis off the couch when they see someone that they find attractive.
Yeah. And like, I was talking to my spouse about that, about how like, that feels a little gross, but it's like 14-year-old boy gross, not like, it doesn't feel like Wayne and Garth are objectifying women. They are appreciating women. But the movie kind of is.
That's an interesting distinction. It's such a weird thing to be like, she gives me a boner.
Yeah.
Which is effectively what that means,
Yes.
right? Like, so I mean, it just feels so weird.
Yes. But it's like, there is no expectation for anything past that.
That is true. There is a distinction between like, oh, she gives me a boner and I want to bone her.
Yeah.
There's a very big difference between those two.
Yeah. This is just like, wow, is she pretty? Which, like, if they said it that way, and like they do, they're like, if she were president, she'd be Abraham Lincoln. And like, forgot about that. So like, this is it's appreciation and not like
it still can be objectification.
Exactly. Yeah.
It still can be objectification, even if it's appreciation, but it's not in a way that feels unsafe.
Yes.
So often objectification does feel unsafe.
Yes. And like the other thing that I appreciate for the most part about the way Wayne talks about Cassandra is he says like, wow, I love this woman when he sees her do cool things.
Yeah, he's not threatened by her badassery.
Yeah. Yeah. So like, it just was really interesting seeing that. Now, as for the male gaze, like what I would do differently, the camera lingers on her breasts and her legs, like the camera.
So there's a literal gaze
Yes.
that you're reacting to, not just sort of in the abstract sense of how we're thinking about this female character, but literally what we are looking at.
Yeah. And that's why all I remembered of her character was of her being hot. And like, I'm kind of frustrated because like, this was kind of the peak of Tia Carrere's career. if I understand it. Like, I know she did some other stuff after this, but I don't really know what she went on to do. And I didn't think of her as like a talent when she is. Like, she's got great comedic chops, and the singing is amazing. Like, you know.
Yeah, it looks like she was in Relic Hunter,
Mm-hmm.
which looks like a B film.
Yeah.
And then
She was in, like, there was a movie that I remember seeing from the early 2000s or maybe late 90s where it's like a guy who decided to go on like 100 first dates in a year. And like the producers made him like have a date with someone famous, and Tia Carrere was the famous person.
oh, she was just in something called AJ and the Queen in 2020.
So, you know, this film should have launched her career the way it did Mike Myers's, but it didn't. And that's a shame. That's a damn shame.
It looks like she's been in a lot of things, but they're all, except for Lilo and Stitch, they're all relatively
Small budget.
yeah. Oh no, she was in True Lies with
Was she? Okay.
Arnold.
And Jamie Lee Curtis.
Jamie Lee Curtis. Yeah, that's on her list. I don't know what she was. I'm just looking at Google, folks. But
yeah.
Anyway, okay. So yeah, she's not. I mean, seriously, when you say her name, this is the film that I think of.
Yeah. That I find really interesting. Like, it's the give with one hand, take away with another that we so often see. And then
I think your point about the actual, like, where the camera lingers actually is specifically that, because that's in some ways very subtle and also has such a huge impact, such that here we are, you know, these 30 years later or whatever, and that's what you remember is her body, because that's the power of that direction, the directorial choices versus even her acting choices. Or the writer, like they all work together. I think that's really like worth noting that it's not just if directorial choices would have been different, that lasting impression, which is what we're all about here on Deep Thoughts, would have been quite different of Cassandra. Yeah. Okay, sorry, carry on.
So that brings me to Stacy.
Yeah.
So Stacy's obsessed with Wayne. She wears a necklace with the letters WAYNE on it. When we first meet her, she brings a gift to him. Like, it's our anniversary gift.
It's like a gun rack.
Gun rack, yeah. So, and like some of the funniest lines, because he's like, there better not be a severed head in there. And then he opens it and he's like, what is it? And she's like, it's a gun rack. And he's like, what am I going to do with a gun rack? I don't even own a gun, let alone multiples requiring a rack. So it's just a weird choice, like why they have this character in there. And what Wayne and Cassandra talk about in Cantonese is about Stacy, is partially. And like that actually is really interesting. I hadn't remembered this. So Stacy talks to Garth on the night that they're at Cassandra's party when Wayne shows that he knows Cantonese. And she says, like, what should I do? And he's like, get over him, date someone else. And she's like, okay. And she like grabs a guy and takes him upstairs to like make out with him in front of Wayne to try to make Wayne jealous. And so she says hi to him as he and Cassandra are talking. And in the subtitles, he says, like, I feel kind of guilty because I think that I'm part of the reason why she can't move on, or I don't remember exactly what it is. Like, ironically, I think I'm causing this, or, you know, he's taking responsibility for whatever is going on with her. And Cassandra says something along the lines of like, it's good that you're compassionate, but don't let her victimize you. So like they even give like a little bit more there so that Stacy isn't just the butt of a joke. That's, you know, like there is this sense that like Wayne realizes that he screwed up in whatever, how he was with her when they were dating, how he broke up with her, whatever. But it's in Cantonese and you get it as subtitles. And they consistently refer to her as the psycho hose beast. And
there's something just so deeply disturbing about the crazy ex-girlfriend trope.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to articulate what it is that's so bothersome about it. Like, the obsessed ex-boyfriend is literally a danger.
Terrifying.
Like,
yeah.
Right? The obsessed ex-boyfriend is the murderer regularly. And the crazy ex-girlfriend is just the butt of a joke.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's part of what is so bothersome about it.
It's also so often the first explanation. Like, oh, we didn't work out because she was crazy. It's not like, and that's why I thought it was interesting that Wayne takes some responsibility for her not being okay right now, because so often you will see like, well, she was crazy. She got mad that I left my socks on the floor. Like, a crazy bitch, and so like there's this lack of compassion or putting oneself in the girlfriend's shoes to understand what she's upset about. And so crazy is the immediate way of describing it, of what it is. Well, she was crazy because she cared about things that don't matter.
I think that's part of it. I think there's also a piece of it that is a little male fantasy, that women can't move on from me, right? That I'm just so remarkable in bed or whatever that, once you've had a taste of me, you can't move on.
Yeah. Yeah.
It also feeds into, I think Wayne's World didn't necessarily, because he did want a commitment with Cassandra, but it also feeds into that fear of commitment. Like I think about another Mike Myers property in the Shrek universe. There's like the scary stories, like Halloween stories, short, where Gingy, the gingerbread man, tells a story about making a girlfriend for him who turns into a crazy, like obsessed, like totally obsessed with him and wants more commitment than he's willing to give, kind of a thing. All of that is baked in to that trope. And it's, even though this is a character who has in backstory, had a romantic relationship with our protagonist, she's not actually a character.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about Stacy, but I'm also just talking about the trope in general. She's just an unwanted woman who wants me. And I think, that constellation is all about male fantasy, I think. And I think that's part of why it bothers me so much, especially because in reality, so often the genders are reversed in heterosexual couples, and that obsessed ex-boyfriend literally kills her.
Well, and even in this conception of it, so Stacy's played by Lara Flynn Boyle, who she was on Twin Peaks. She played Audrey on Twin Peaks. She was the one who tied the cherry stem in a knot with her tongue.
Oh yeah, I remember.
Yeah. She is a gorgeous woman.
Yeah.
Now, Mike Myers is an attractive man. Like he's not movie star handsome, but he's an attractive man. Wayne Campbell has a mullet.
Yeah, Wayne's not a particularly attractive protagonist.
And he has
He's
a
more
series
attractive
of
than Garth.
Yes. But he has a series of McJobs. He's like, he lives in his parents' house. Like, he's got a cable access show out of his basement. He has no real ambition. Like that's the other aspect of it that's kind of a male fantasy, is like Lara Flynn Boyle would have nothing to do with that character. Like, and like they make Stacy, like she's it's hard to tell because it's 1992 fashion. And so I'm like, are they trying to make her look a little dowdy, or is that just what you wore? I'm not sure.
Tia Carrere doesn't look dowdy. I think it's on purpose.
Not at all. But like when you first see her, she's wearing one of those dresses that we wore at bar mitzvahs in 1992, where it's like the 3 skirts, like kind of thing. Anyway, it's like, it's not unflattering. It like she is an attractive woman, but she's not like Lara Flynn Boyle. Mm-hmm. But anyway, and like they show her in form-fitting stuff. She just doesn't they're just choices that they make. So she doesn't look as attractive. But that's like part of it as well, is like, it's already kind of a fantasy that Cassandra would be interested in him, even though I think that it makes sense in the way that they wrote the movie. They wrote it that he learned Cantonese for her, and she's used to people just being like, wow, you're hot.
Right.
Because that's what Benjamin is like to her.
Right.
And so like, okay, fair. But that there would be 2 such attractive women and one of them would be obsessed with him. Because that's the other aspect of it that I appreciated about Cassandra, is he loses the show. She is still working with Benjamin. Benjamin has done all of this, manipulated it. And Benjamin's played by Rob Lowe, who is Rob Lowe. I mean, like, that man.
He's a very attractive man.
Oh my God, he's so good looking.
Yeah.
And at every age, like, because he's now in his 60s and it's still just like, damn.
Yeah, I
man.
wouldn't kick him out of my bed for eating crackers.
Me either. So Wayne gets jealous and he loses the show, and he goes to Cassandra, who's packing to go film her music video. And he's like, oh, are you still working with Benjamin? She's like, yeah, this is my career. And he goes, well, maybe he's poking you, which is like the grossest possible way of saying it. And she says, I think you better leave. Get out of my house. Good for her. And she has no intention of ever talking to him again. Like, great. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And he has to win her back. And he also recognizes that he does, that was really gross. And he should never have said such a thing, and ew. And, you know, don't get in the way of her career, dude.
Yeah.
So a couple other things I want to mention. One is that part of what is so endearing about this movie is the chemistry between Wayne and Garth, and specifically Mike Myers and Dana Carvey. There is a scene where they're lying on the Pacer, the GMC Pacer, that is the car that they drove.
I loved Pacers before even I had seen that movie. I just thought they were the like coolest looking.
They looked awesome. I like cars with big asses.
Me too. I have this little like, if you're watching the video, you can see I have like a little Hot Wheel. It's actually from the Cars, the movie, but it's like the Pacers car that I keep on my little desk. I just think this is that big fat. Anyway, so they're laying on the Pacer.
I like cars with the donkadonks. I mean, like, what can I say?
You gotta be able to put some junk in a trunk, man.
Exactly. Literally. So there's the scene where they're lying on the Pacer watching airplanes fly in. And Dana Carvey says, did you ever think that Bugs Bunny, when he dressed up as a girl bunny, was kind of attractive? And Wayne goes
like, no.
And then starts laughing. That was ad-libbed by Dana Carvey. And that was actually Mike Myers laughing. And that's always been one of my favorite moments, in part because of like that laughter is like so funny and genuine.
Because it was.
Because it was. And like, I mean, Garth, you're not wrong.
I mean, they drew him that way for a reason.
So some of what is so charming about this movie is that friend chemistry between Wayne and Garth. And then there are these random asides. Like, for example, Alice Cooper in Milwaukee, which is the reason why I know that Milwaukee means the good land. And it was Milwaukee in the Algonquin.
You know that because of
this movie.
Huh.
Is that
right? Huh.
Um, yeah, there's they spend time with Alice Cooper backstage, and they like Wayne's not sure what to say to him. He's like, "Do you come to Milwaukee often?" And Alice Cooper is like, "I am a regular visitor to Milwaukee, which has seen lots of travelers." And like, including, you know, people visiting the natives who lived here, the Native Americans who lived here. In fact, the word Milwaukee.
Wow.
And then the other thing that I think is fascinating about Milwaukee is it's the only major American city to have had 3 socialist mayors. And that's the point at which Wayne goes, "Does this guy know how to party or what?" That is so charming. It is so charming.
Yeah. Well, and it has nothing to do with the fact that you live in Milwaukee now.
So it hits different now that I live in Milwaukee. I was talking to my youngest, and I think one of his teachers or something, and we were talking about Milwaukee, and the teacher and I were both like, "It means the good land." And my youngest was like, "Wait, that's cool that you both know that." And we're like, well, there's this movie.
That is so funny that you and the teacher bonded over that.
Yeah. That's charming. It's just charming. There's another scene where Garth plays the drums, and that's actually Dana Carvey. And then the soundtrack is amazing. So like there's all these charming things. Now, the most famous scene is the Bohemian Rhapsody scene in The Pacer, which Mike Myers fought to have in the movie. Lorne Michaels wanted it to be Guns N' Roses, which honestly makes a little more sense with who the characters are.
Yeah.
But Mike Myers was like, he and his brothers, I think, used to like sing along to it and the operatic stuff and like had a great time with it when he was a kid. And he's like, no, we got to do this. And he was right. I mean, that scene is charming. Like,
I think there's also something really much more interesting. Is it more interesting, Trace? There's something interesting about the fact that they were using this song that wasn't new.
Mm-mm.
In 92.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's something really kind of like interesting and deep and powerful about that this Queen song. I mean,
and it was within months of when Freddie Mercury died.
Yeah, I was just going to say, was Freddie Mercury even still with us?
Yeah, they didn't and couldn't have known because it was filmed, I think, in the summer of 91 and released in 92, I think in February 92.
So Freddie Mercury was still with us when they filmed it.
Yes. So it wasn't like it was an immediate tribute, but that is how I was introduced to Queen. Now I knew We Will Rock You, but I didn't know that was Queen.
Right.
As an aside, this is also how I learned that our father was a bullshitter.
It was this because
it was
Play it on thick all the time.
So here's the thing, like, it's how I figured it out.
Okay.
Because like it had happened before, but I hadn't really like put it together. Dad told me that song was called Scaramouche. And I said with vim and conviction to everyone, no, the song is called Scaramouche.
My dad said so.
And so Jim Guy was a lot of things, but he was the OG mansplainer of all time.
For reals. Yeah. And if he didn't know, he just made that shit up.
He just made it up. And he said it with such confidence and
so
conviction.
Sure.
Yes.
Like, and so mom tells the story like before they got divorced that he tried to convince her that Olivia Newton-John and Elton John were married.
Like, it would make more sense if they were brother and sister.
Mom tells the story. That's how she realized he was a bullshitter because Olivia Newton-John and Elton John were married. Love you, Dad.
Yeah. Miss you like crazy. I wish you were still here to bullshit us. But oh my goodness. Yeah. So that is one of my big takeaways from this movie too, was like, I was a pariah at Deer Park Middle School because
you thought it was called Scaramouche.
I thought it was called Scaramouche and I argued with people.
So funny.
So there's some things that I think might be different if we made it today. I think the male gaze would be different. There are some jokes that I like. We might treat Stacy differently, or one would
I
hope.
hope so.
But the thing that I kind of remembered and kind of forgot how it came about is there's a scene where Benjamin is chasing after Wayne to try to stop him. And he's like walking like oddly, and I couldn't remember exactly why. And it's because they are friends with a police officer who early on he talks about how he had to do body cavity searches on like this like entire hockey team or something like that. And so when Wayne decides to go after Cassandra and try to get her to play for the big record executive, like all the friends are like, we'll help you do this. And so you see the police officer pull Benjamin over, and then he's like, all right, well, you turn around and put your hands on the hood of the car. And then he pulls on a glove.
So Benjamin's walking funny because he's been sexually assaulted.
Yes.
By one of Wayne's friends. That's
like
unpleasant.
That, yeah. And I was talking to my spouse about that, and he was like, well, I mean, I was like, honey, it's
not okay.
Not funny. It's not okay. And it's not just not okay. It's also like an abuse of police power.
It's just
which
gross.
Is really ugly.
On multiple levels.
Yeah.
And like we laughed at it because it was the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And because it's Rob Lowe and he's so handsome and,
mm-hmm.
you know, and Benjamin's a dick. And so mm-hmm. like whatever he got was coming to him. Mm-hmm. But no, that we can't keep doing that.
Yeah.
If something is wrong, it's wrong, regardless of who it's being done to.
Yes, exactly. You don't have to be a good person to not be sexually assaulted.
By the cops,
by the police, or by anybody, but
by anybody, but in particular by those who are sworn to protect and serve. Yeah. Agents of the state should not. No, nope.
So that has not aged well. That's basically it. Like I was a little afraid that we might see like the ableist R word.
No.
I was afraid there might be gay panic. No. There's none of that. So like there's, in fact, one of the camera operators for that hangs out with Wayne and Garth, who is Terry, he consistently, when he finds out something like good news, he's like, oh, Wayne, I love you, man. And like, Garth, I love you, man. And like, it's this running joke that he's like, no, I really love you. And the joke is not that this man loves his male friends. The joke is that he's just so effusive about it. And like people don't know how to respond. And in like the movie has 3 endings. There's the sad ending, there's the Scooby-Doo ending, and then there's the super mega happy ending. And in the super mega happy ending, one of the characters to whom Terry has said, I love you, man, his super happy ending is like, I've learned that 2 men can have platonic friendship and love between them. And I'm all the richer for it. And like, that's delightful. I mean, I love that. That's great. That's very healthy. We need that. And even the way that Wayne goes about fixing the things he's broken, because he loses his show, he doesn't get it back because he wouldn't, because there was a contract, like that's at least realistic. He loses his best friend because he walks out on the show in the middle of taping. And so Garth, who is not socially adept, has to do the show by himself, which he is not capable of doing. And he gets really mad at him. And then he loses Cassandra because he accuses her of cheating on him in the worst possible way. And the way that he apologizes to Garth and the way that he apologizes to Cassandra are just, they're lovely. Like he overdoes it with Cassandra. And they have it underneath their like Oscar clip. And he takes like water and he's like, and I never learned to read. But it's like, it's sincere. Like he's sincerely sorry for what he's done. And like, and the way that he tries to make it up to Garth. And it's lovely. I was reading some contemporaneous reviews, including Roger Ebert, who he said basically went into it without much in the way of expectations. And he was charmed by it and thought it was funny. And one of the things I believe it was Ebert said was that part of what this story is like, don't underestimate these kind of slacker guys. Like, they're sweet, good people who are capable of doing cool things, like learning Cantonese.
I feel like there's probably some like underlying message about Gen X too. Like we were
Yes.
like we were
Oh,
always
actually.
told that we were lazy when in fact we just didn't care about the things that boomers cared about.
Thank you for bringing that up, because that actually, there's a lot of overlap with Reality Bites and the idea of selling out, because that's the issue. Like, Wayne does not want to have to interview Noah Vanderhoff on his show every week, which is what he would have to do under the contract. And then that satirical scene where he's like, I'm just not going to sell out. And then, like, you know, he's got Pizza Hut and then Pepsi. And then I think he's like, this is giving me a headache. And like, here, try this. And it's the Nuprin. Do you remember those? Little yellow, different.
Better. Little yellow, different, better.
They didn't have better in the movie. And so like, it's really, it's fascinating, because I feel like it's doing exactly what Reality Bites did, except even more biting, because it's saying, like, don't sell out. And yet this entire scene is product placement.
Which is what Reality Bites, I mean.
Yes.
Like, Reality Bites did that. They just didn't have their tongue in their cheek. So
that's really fascinating to think about. And then also, like, did Wayne make the right choice? And like, I mean, he insulted Noah Vanderhoff. He had cards of questions he was supposed to ask, and on the back he wrote like "Sphincter Boy" and stuff like that, which is what he's always done. And the real problem is he didn't read his contract.
Right.
It's not that.
How does he fix the losing the show? Does he start a new show? Oh,
there is so there's no solution to that in the film. I don't know if, like, I've seen Wayne's World 2. I remember bits of it, but I don't
remember it either. If my friend this morning hadn't mentioned it, I'm not sure I could have come up with anything about it. So
it's just gone, which
is how life goes sometimes.
That's how it goes. Yeah. But, you know, he got the important stuff is
yeah, I mean, he could have just started a new show called like Wayne and Garth in the Morning or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Wayne and Garth in the morning.
Yeah. You can tell I've been watching Community lately. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that's really interesting. I mean, like, and in terms of like what the underlying message is about selling out though, right? Because Reality Bites was like trying to have it both ways, that we had this major motion picture that was telling us that we should not sell out, and gave us that sort of false binary. Like, it seems to me that even by doing that very satirical, like, I would never sell out, here, have Little Yellow Different, they're sort of saying like, you know, this is how it is.
Yeah.
Like, we've already sold out. That's what this is.
Well,
and so there's kind of a like, it undercuts it undercuts the false binary. I think ultimately.
Well, and it also, the other thing that I think is interesting is that he doesn't get the show back. Like, and the super mega happy ending does not include him having Wayne's World again. And like, that's also like, I feel like that's very Gen X as well. It's just like, that's life.
Meh. Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
I mean, that's kind of how our childhoods were, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Meh.
Yeah.
Some pizza rolls.
Yeah.
Play hockey in the street.
Cool. All right. Any other like key highlights that you want to lift up, or should I look back and reflect back on what we've said?
I think reflection's pretty good time for that.
So see if I can lift back up some of the things on the problematic side. What I heard a lot about gender, and this is really interesting to me in the ways that you picked out the problematics of the male gaze in this film, which is specific to the medium. So if we had been reading a novel about Wayne's World, possibly, we would have not been left with that same sort of male gaze. I mean, depending on how it was written, we still might have heard more descriptions of Cassandra's breasts than we did of her intellect. But in particular, it was the directorial choices in this film that left us with this sort of lasting impression of her as a hot girl. as opposed to as a talented musician, as an ambitious artist, as a no-nonsense businesswoman, or a no-nonsense, woman who takes no guff from her boyfriend. Like all of those things were true about this character, but the thing that you were left with from your 13-year-old self, 12-year-old self, 13-year-old self is tits and ass. And that's a directorial choice that did that. I found that really interesting. Also on the problematic side, we've got Stacy, the crazy ex-girlfriend, who also, in my read, is ultimately about male fantasy because she's not actually a fully formed human being. She's just
a psycho hose beast.
Right. She's a woman that I've had sex with. And since I had sex with her, she won't have sex with anybody else. And that sort of like wish fulfillment of how amazing a particular man might be for the women in his life. The amazingness
of Wayne's Wang. If you're wondering where my sense of humor came from, I saw this when I was 13.
One more thing in the problematic section here, we've got Rob Lowe walking kind of funny at the end where having an agent of the state sexually assault a man who he doesn't like is like the butt of a joke. Not cool. Not cool. On the other side, we saw actually some really interesting things where this kind of, aimless, I think is the word that you used, Wayne Campbell and very driven Cassandra actually do make a certain amount of sense together as a romantic pairing. The way that he put himself out to learn Cantonese, which proved that actually he's not incapable. He just doesn't wanna, which I link back to Gen X in general. I feel like that was a common complaint that boomers had about us, especially in the 90s, which actually, if you look back, it's like pretty common throughout history.
That's actually when people were saying that about millennials, like in the 2000s, like when as millennials were becoming adults. And I was just like, I didn't take it seriously because I was like, I remember boomers saying this about Gen X like 15 years ago. Why is everyone's memory so short?
Yeah. Well, Cicero was saying it in, 4th century. So that's sort of another sort of interesting thing, the Gen X piece of it. Also on the plus sides, the soundtrack is remarkable.
It's so good.
The charm of the chemistry between Wayne and Garth, Mike Myers and Dana Carvey, is really delightful. The laughter and the enjoyment of one another is genuine because those two men actually made each other laugh on the regular. Also, some of the like weird asides that don't actually advance the plot, but there wasn't much of one, such as Alice Cooper teaching us about Milwaukee, meaning the good land, and Wayne and the other guys singing Bohemian Rhapsody in the Pacer, which became sort of iconic scenes for Gen X, both taught a whole new generation about Queen and Bohemian Rhapsody, which was not called Scaramouche, despite what our father told you. And also, like, now we've got these two Milwaukeeites. What do y'all call yourselves?
Milwaukeeans.
Now we got these two Milwaukeeans like telling a 10-year-old like what the name of the city means because of this movie. So, there's some really sweet takeaways and like long-term impacts, sweet long-term impacts from this movie, like these little sort of takeaway things. So one other thing that I'm going to add, which I think I'm going to put in sort of I started to say neutral and now I'm not sure if neutral is the right word, but it's not overly problematic, but it's also like not, great. It's not in the sweet category either, which is the ways in which Wayne and Garth objectify women, which we noted is still objectifying, but it doesn't feel dangerous, unlike so much objectification of women, which does seem to be a first step toward violence against women. These two indeterminate age men going swing doesn't feel like the first step toward violence against women, unlike other pop culture depictions of, wow, she's so pretty. Though I have to say, She Will Be Mine, oh yes, she will.
She will be.
Could be the first step toward violence against women.
Yes. Yeah.
So, you know, it's a give and take here. That was a lot. I'm actually really proud of myself that I remembered all those things, because I don't usually remember them all in like my one, like, that's what we talked about. But I'm sure there's something that you want to make sure that I didn't leave on the table. So lay it on me. What did I leave on the table?
The fact that it was a female director, and that was still relatively rare in 1992. Now she and Mike Myers clashed a bit. And so she did not come back for Wayne's World 2. Now it sounds like as easygoing as his character is, he is very serious and driven about his comedy. There were also things like apparently like the headbanging because it takes so many takes to get a full scene, but the headbanging to Bohemian Rhapsody, he got really frustrated because it was hurting. But she was like, no, we got to keep getting the takes until we get it. And, things like that.
It's really interesting too, that we see that male gaze, which is very much a directorial choice coming from a female director.
Yes.
Of course, it's in 92. So she's doing what she needs to do. Maybe. Yeah. That adds an interesting layer to that analysis that we shared.
Yeah. Cause if it were like we talked about The Fifth Element recently, and like Luc Besson directing that, okay, we understand where he's lingering.
Well, and part of what we said when we talked about Luc Besson's on the Fifth Element was like, where were the women? Where were the women helping to make this piece of media? Well, we have an answer here. There she is, Penelope in the director chair. Penelope, what was her name?
Spheris.
Penelope Spheris in the director chair, and yet we still have the male gaze, which I think is as much an indictment of our culture and what it took for her to be sitting in the director's chair as it is of Penelope herself.
Well, it's also like, the thing is, I remember Tia Carrere's beauty because I liked looking at her too.
Yeah.
Like this is like, some of this is also like, yeah, linger there. I want to see that.
But Rob Lowe is also very, I mean, we spent a moment kind of drooling over Rob Lowe, but there wasn't like lingering over his pecs or his biceps or, his crotch. At least that I don't recall that.
No, I mean, like they make it clear that he's a very handsome man, and he's dressed in like early 90s like businessman attire. And some of it is like that it was baggy, like suits were big then. Right. And like
but we also saw him in bed, you said initially. So
and, we might have I can't remember if he was shirtless or not, honestly. So yeah,
we also have been conditioned to expect and appreciate the male gaze after thousands of years of it.
Well, and as important as this film was for me at 13, like it was important for everyone in my middle school, including the cishet young boys.
Right.
So, I mean, that was part of like Tia Carrere was hired not just because of her talent.
Right. Okay. Any final thoughts?
No, I think I was glad to revisit it. I was glad that I've had such media conversations with my kids that my son could say, "Isn't that misogynistic?"
Oh yeah, way to go! I mean, seriously, good on you. That is proof of good parenting right there.
I don't know if I'd call it that, but
I would.
But overall, like this held up remarkably well. It's still a pretty sweet film. The humor is still pretty good. There's stuff that like went over my head as a kid, and I'm glad went over my youngest's head.
Yeah.
But when they all start headbanging, all four of us laughed.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
my husband and I, like, we knew it was coming, but we still
That's cool. That's pretty cool. So next time's supposed to be me.
Yes, but instead, we are going to have a guest. I went to a writers' conference in February and I met Mallory Henson there. I was telling her a little bit about the podcast and she asked if we had done an episode on Pee-wee's Playhouse. And I was like, oh my goodness, no, I hadn't even thought of it. And I was like, would you like to come on? And she said, sure. So,
you said the word. Cool.
I have not thought about that show in forever.
Yeah, I don't think we watched it really. Like a little bit, but it wasn't one on regular rotation. At least for me, it wasn't.
I saw the film, Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Yes, me too. But the show, I only watched a little bit. It wasn't one of my regulars.
Yeah. So I'm pretty excited to dig into that with her.
Do you have any listener comments you want to share?
I do. I have a couple of things. So friend of the show, Lynette Davis, said...
hi, Lynette.
The Bohemian Rhapsody scene was my favorite. I think that's how I officially got introduced to Queen. Heard their songs before, but was too young to put the pieces together until that scene. Iconic. And I replied, that's how I first heard Queen too. And then my friend Sherry Ann said, me three.
Yeah.
And then another friend of the show, Kate Moody, said... This is one of my favorite movies of all time. I know. So it introduced me to Queen and the song Ballroom Blitz, which is this version of Ballroom Blitz is amazing.
Yeah.
That's actually another thing that I remember from the film is there's a point where she sings with a wink of her eye, with Tia Carrere sings that and she winks. And I just remember that being really cool. And she asked how'd the comedy hold up for you on this rewatch. And I was like, remarkably well.
Cool. All right. I look forward to meeting Mallory and talking about Pee-wee's Playhouse next time. Until then,
see you next time.
Do you like stickers? Sure, we all do. If you head over to guygirlsmedia.com/sign-up and share your address with us, we'll send you a sticker. It really is that easy. But don't wait, there's a limited quantity. Thanks for listening. Our theme music is Professor Umlaut by Kevin MacLeod from Incompetech.com. Find full music credits in the show notes. Until next time, remember, pop culture is still culture. And shouldn't you know what's in your head?